Okay.
This guy lost his life, and it didn't have to happen. It was purely a mistake on somebody else's behalf, and I'll cleanse him. This is what happened, bro. I said, sir, I'm Filipino. He says, what part of Africa is that, boy? Shoulder.
Hit him in the shoulder right here?
Hit it here, and it came out the back of his tricep, but he laid down. So my cousin came out and said, man, get out of here with that blind shit. He said, my dad already called 911. My uncle comes out, Andy, damn it, man, what do you do now? Putang ina,
Yeah, what's up? Welcome back to the Others TV. Please like, share, subscribe, follow us on Instagram to find out more information about us. We got new merchandises for all races, whether you're Lao, Thai, Hmong, Filipino, Japanese, Iraqi. We got t-shirts and stuff for you. So if you can, go check out our merch on our IG. I want to give a shout out to GQPTV, everybody from the team. GQ, what's up? Lon from the Asian Solidarity Collective for putting this space together and letting the community use it. And yeah, all right, before I begin, I want to introduce my guest from Seattle. He's a close friend of mine. Actually, go ahead, Andy, introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my government name is Andres Pacificar. I'm probably better known as FLACO. Everybody knows me as the Asian FLACO, and I'm Filipino. And I'm grateful to be here in this community space with Tira others. I wish him much luck and success in his endeavor, just bringing these stories out to the community for all others. As if you're from California, you know the significance of the word others because that's what we're known at in the system. So thanks a lot, Tira, and also to GQP Studios for making this happen. And much love, G. Haven't seen you in a while, but thanks for letting me be here like this.
Hey, it's an honor to have you, OG. Well, let's start by what nationality you are, your family history, how many brothers and sisters you have, and where you're originally from.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'd like to say I'm originally from the Philippines, right? Because that's where my father was from. And I have two sisters. I'm the only boy, and my dad was in World War II in the Navy, and that's how he got his citizenship. And he came to the United States and met my mother, who is Caucasian, but it wasn't my fault, But anyways, yes. So I had two sisters, and because of the war, when he got out of the war, he was a migrant farm worker in California, and so he seen that wasn't working to provide for a family, and so we went back to Seattle, Washington, and brought us up there and rejoined the Navy.
So where were you originally born?
I was born in Seattle, Washington, which my father, when he the migrant worker wasn't working out for him, went back to Seattle and to raise a family, and he rejoined the Navy. And so I was born in Sandpoint Naval Air Station.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So is that the city you grew up in?
Well, that's a long story as well, because I grew up basically in three cities. I grew up in Seattle, Washington, San Diego, California, and New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay, let's start off about your younger years and from what age did you move out of Seattle? How long did you stay in Seattle for until you left?
So being a Navy kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
My dad got stationed in a place called Gardner, Kansas, back when I was 3 years old. I just remember, my earliest memory is kindergarten there. And so from Gardner, Kansas at the age of 7, he got transferred to New Orleans. And one of my sisters married somebody from New Orleans. And my father passed away in a car accident when I was 8 years old. And so that kind of split our family up because my mom, myself, and my sister went back to Seattle, Washington to my mom's family. And my other sister stayed in Louisiana with her husband. And so in my growing up years, I went back and forth from Louisiana to Seattle. And then my second sister got married to a guy from Hawaii. And so he ended up moving in, working in Seattle. After he bounced around, he came to San Diego. And that's where he got out of the Navy and made his life for my sister. So coming up years, I would be sent from San Diego to New Orleans to Seattle, back to New Orleans, living with my sisters.
So when your dad passed, where were you located at that time?
At New Orleans.
Oh, so he passed in New Orleans?
Yeah.
Rest in peace to your father.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So how did your father's passing affected you emotionally? And you said you were 8, right?
Yeah, I was only 8, and I'm really up there in years now. Retirement age, And it took me many, many years to figure out how traumatic that event was. And, you know, I grew up not knowing this. It was probably the cause of all my behavior acting out when I started getting in trouble with the law because my mom got remarried. And I used to think like that's not my dad. He can't tell me what to do. And so I rebelled against that. And so, you know, I never did want to stay with my mom or be around my stepdad. So his passing, you know, had effects on my life in ways that I didn't understand until recently.
So can you share with me like your earliest childhood memories of your father?
Yeah, one of my earliest memories was him taking me to school, and I would con him into buying me a big pack of candy. And I told him I could, if I buy a big pack of candy to share with my kids, my classmates, I could bring candy to school. And so my dad being Filipino and stuff like that, he listened to me. And so that's like one of the few things I do remember of my childhood with my dad. That, and he bought me a pair of boxing gloves, who I retained for many years. You know, that was his last gift to me before he passed.
Well, does your dad, was he speaking Tagalog to you, or does he normally speak English to you?
Not much. In most of the Tagalog that I did learn, I learned. I'm gonna say through my journey through prison. You know, because eventually that's what led to. My life led me, my journey and path.
So, when you was a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
You know what? I thought I was going to be a basketball player, to be honest with you. And until I got to junior high school, and there was James Woods was a 7 foot tall guy in a junior high school, and I said I won't be playing much basketball as I get older. So I took to the streets and with the homies and stuff.
So like, okay, your dad passing at 8 years. How were you academically in school at that point in time? Were you like getting good grades and stuff like that?
Never that, never that.
So you have always been like a little kind of knucklehead kid, growing up,
skipping school as far as I can remember.
Even when your dad was around, you was still like that. You was only second grade.
Second grade when my father passed away. Second grade, and I think when he passed away, it was in March of 1967 that he passed away, and I don't think I even finished second grade. But when I moved, did I knock something over?
No, it's all good. Let's just go with it. It's cool.
Right. So yeah, I don't think I even finished second grade, but eventually I landed with my cousin. My mom dropped me off at my auntie's house, and I started growing up in third grade. And so back then, man,
you landed at your auntie's house in third grade.
Yeah.
Already?
Yeah. So like my dad passed away in second grade, and so all that movement and turmoil, bringing his body back to Washington and all that. My my mom's sister lived in Seattle, Washington, and so they dropped me off over there. And my mom was, you know, getting things together, I guess, you know, with my other sister, and I ended up growing up with my cousins. And you got to figure this is in Seattle, Washington, in the late '60s. This was in the Black Panther era. Martin Luther King had just been assassinated, and my neighborhood was full of Black Panthers and riots. The riots that happened because of his assassination was like right where in the middle of where I lived in my neighborhood, and so that had a big impact on my life too.
So, arriving back into Seattle, right? So you say you're still 8 or 9 years old when you arrived back, and this is you're actually going to live with your auntie now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, when did you start the first time? Do you remember the first time you getting into trouble with the law or with school or anything like that?
School, I stayed in trouble at school. Back in them days, man, the principal was allowed to give you swats.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so, like, man, we'd have to go to the principal's office, and he used to smack that ass with a wooden paddle.
What? And it was loud?
Man, and it stung like hell, you know? And, like, the first time would be 1 swat. If you go back, you know, you'd get 2. The next time, you'd get 3. And I was up to about 5, you know?
So you was in 3rd grade. Okay, so what year was this? Give the audience an idea.
68, baby.
1968.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, you know, I'm kind of an ancient. You know,
nah, you in the golden era, you know, so you could lace us up by a lot of information from that time.
Yeah, that sounds good. It sounds real good, you know.
Okay. So you sound like you jumped off the porch at such a young age. I was like, what time did you jump off the porch? It seems like
I would say about then too, because see, my love dropped off with my auntie. She had 5 sons. So those were my cousins, but they were more like my brothers because I was always with them, you know. And so I had a cousin that's my age, and we were known throughout our grade school years and our junior high schools as the cousins. You know, it's like I didn't even have my own personal identity because we was known as the cousins because where one was, the other was. If one fought, we both fought.
Okay.
You know, and then being Asian back then, if you know, back in that time, place and time, people went by the motto minority myth. And, you know, they didn't know that Asians had poor people too.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
when we was out there stealing and you know, robbing as young kids, you know, and skipping school and hiding from the other kids because we weren't black and we weren't white. But we was out there in the mix, you know, and so, yeah, we started early.
So if you was in the 60s, you was actually, you experienced segregation.
Yes.
So you got any memories of anything that happened during to you yourself?
That's funny, man, that you bring that up because after like a year or two in Seattle, I went back to my sister in New Orleans because she was stuck down there by herself. So it was send Andy to me. I miss my brother and stuff. And so I was probably in 3rd or 4th grade. Went back down there, and it gets foggy in all those younger years. But the school, the grade school I went to, there was an old army barracks across the street, and it was for black kids only. They were segregated. How I ended up in the white school, I don't know. But I mean, like at our recess time, I could see the black kids outside playing. And like all the black people lived in projects. They didn't live in the same neighborhoods. And I lived in a Navy housing when my pops was alive. Then when I went back to live with my sister, she married a white guy, so we lived in a white neighborhood, and I went to a white school. But the racial prejudice back then was like crazy. I remember to this day walking into a corner store, and the man behind the counter said, "Hey, boy, what kind of nigga are you?" And you know, I'm like a 9-10-year-old kid, you know, and I said, "Sir, I'm Filipino." And he says, "Oh, well, what part of Africa is that, boy?"
Wow.
And so those words stick to me to this day, you know. And there were other times, you know, me being bounced back and forth. There's Mardi Gras in New Orleans for people that you ever heard of that? You know, it's a big ass celebration. But my most vivid memories of that is watching the police beat black people up with their billy clubs, and they used to walk twirling those batons, whatever they call it, back then, billy club, and they used to could swing them and do tricks with them, and that's my vivid memory of that.
Wow.
Yeah, and how unfair they were to blacks, you know, and this is crazy because you figure we're in the 60s and 70s, you know. And
So you coming back and forth from Seattle to Louisiana, you actually had no school structure then. You actually wasn't probably not. You were attending school back and forth, going back and forth, enrolling in different schools.
I would, but yeah. So I was always the new kid, you know. So there was always that, and I never got settled in.
Yeah.
I came to live with my sister in San Diego for my senior year, and I went to Castle Park here in Chula Vista. But before I could graduate, something happened, and I ended up going back to Seattle because I kind of got dropped off here by myself.
So what city would you say you spent the most time growing up?
I would say my most of my roots are in Seattle, Washington, because that's where I started really breaking the law.
And what part of the Seattle do you represent?
Oh, Beacon Hill for sure.
Beacon Hill. Okay.
You know, and so you got to think about it like this, man. Back in then, Bloods and Crips weren't even around. So when did Bloods and Crips? And so when I hit my like right after high school years, even though I didn't finish high school, Filipinos used to work in the canneries. So we'd go to Chinatown. So my clique and the gang that I was from back then was Tulisan, and it was it was funny back then. It was foreign-born Filipinos against American-born Filipinos.
Wow. Okay.
And it was foreign-born Chinese against American-born Chinese. It was American against FOBs. And ironically, man, I always gravitated to the foreign-borns. And so I was a Chinatown boy from early on, you know. And there's been like quite a few incidents in Chinatown, Seattle that put Seattle on the map, unfortunately, you know. And it came to be that like some people, that friends from high school days of just kicking it around in Seattle, ended up being that some of those friends were traumatically affected by murders that happened in Chinatown and in and around Chinatown. And so my association with some of the foreign-born Filipinos was a bad association. And fortunately for me, I was able to go to New Orleans and get out of it at good times in the history.
Before we talk about that, can you tell us some more about the organization that you was involved with, or the group of guys you was involved with? Like, because they're your friends, right?
Oh man,
yeah, those your buddies. You know what I'm saying?
The ones that are alive and not in prison. The ones that are alive are in prison. The other ones, I don't know where they are. But
What age did you actually join up with them?
I got put on when I was like 17.
17.
And so, but like back then, there was a union. And so for Filipinos have been known to go work in Alaska canneries since the 1930s. And so that's how it was run, by Filipinos running a union. And you go to the union hall and get a dispatch, and we'd work a contract in Alaska. So the clique I became involved in ran all the gambling in Chinatown and in Alaska. So like we'd work for our hours, and then when we go to the bunkhouse, you know, we'd break out the gambling tables. We played a Haiku, was a Chinese game that looked like dominoes.
Yes.
We played another game called Lucky Nine, and another game called Sequoy. And so like that's what I got involved in, and that's where all the violence started coming in.
Who introduced you? You told me you were with your cousins in Seattle, and you hang out with your cousins. So how were you introduced to these guys? Did you hang out?
So
in the
my
neighborhood?
cousin first was around, and you got to remember there was gaps in me living with my cousin because I'd go to Louisiana.
Yes.
And when I go to Louisiana, I'm riding horses with white girls in Louisiana and doing stuff like that. And then I got a job down there as a high school, and I'd go to the projects with the black kids, which is unheard of if you ain't black, you know. But so in one of those gaps, my cousin was going to Alaska working in the cannery, you know, and I was in Louisiana. So then I came back to Seattle and said everybody's in Alaska making money, and so I would go to Chinatown because that's where our Filipino roots were. You know, because we had the Filipino section at Chinatown for as long as I could remember, and there was these little establishments. One was called the Bathhouse, I guess, for back in the day, old Filipino men could go take a bath and stuff. But in that time, in the 70s, it was a gambling house in the backyard. You know, so there'd always be an old Filipino man sitting at the door looking out a peephole, and you ring the bell, and he'd look to see who it was, and he'd let you in.
Oh wow!
And then you step to the back room. I
used to see it on TV all the time. It's like, you know what I'm saying, you knock on it, slide open. Yeah.
It was fascinating to me because I was just a kid, just to be able to have access to that back room, you know, and I could go in there. And I used to, like, if I had a female with me, I'd make her sit in the car and just wait. I'll be right back. I'll be out in a minute. And go in there and try to gamble real quick and get some money to, you know, to do whatever, right? But how it all started was I got a dispatch to go to Alaska. And while in Alaska, one of my American-born enemies was up there. And so I gravitated toward the foreign-born dudes, right? And so I told, man, I got beef with this dude. And so we ended up getting him up, you know. And I got it pretty good. And so he, like, tried to cross me out because he had been there before. But the foreign-born cats that I was kicking it with, you know, vouch for him. He said, man, that's a good dude. Don't fire him. Don't send him back. And so I got to stay in Alaska.
So well, they sent you to Alaska to work, right?
Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 17.
They sent you to Alaska to work at 17 or 18?
Yeah, maybe 18.
Well, what exactly were you doing?
So our job, I got paid to be a slimer.
A slimer?
So this is what they had. When you got dispatched from the union in Seattle, you were either a slimer, a butcher, or a sorter. Right? And they always give the white people the warehouse jobs. They drive the forklifts and stuff. But the Filipinos always had the fish house where after a machine butchered salmon, we'd have to slime out the rest of the guts and bloods and send them on another conveyor belt where they go to another process and get canned. There was another machine before it got to me would a blade turned like this, man, damn near 24/7, knocking off the heads of salmon, and then these American-born Filipino dude would pull the eggs out of the salmon. They had it down to a science, and so companies like Bumblebee Tuna and Peter Pan and all that, they all had canneries and stuff in Alaska.
So you just dropped out of, like, you basically stopped going to school and you just went to do this right here.
Yeah.
But before this situation right here, you said you was running with the Chinatown boys, right?
Yeah.
And and you said that was like what, 16, 17. So you
yeah, between 17 and 21, say that. You know, because you go to Alaska for 3 months is your contract, and that's seasonal work. And then you come back, and so if we didn't have no work, where were we at? Chinatown. You know, and I caught my first case then.
Well, before we who were you living with at this time?
My cousin, myself in Chinatown with the homies. You know, with my mom. I always, my mom and stepdad had a house up on Beacon Hill where I called myself growing up because that would just be home base, right? But I had those two houses, my auntie's house and my mom's house. You know, and we ran all over. But then again, I spent time and months at a time in a hotel room in Chinatown.
Okay.
You know, because there was a lot of migrant workers at that time. Filipinos come from Delano, California, and Stockton, California, to come up there at certain times a year to get a dispatch to the cannery. But the congregational place was in Chinatown, in Seattle, and so there was like two big infamous events that happened in that time in late 70s, early 80s was the Wah Mee Massacre, which was
Willie
Mock, so I met.
Well, we could tell I'll tell another episode, tell the audience it was a massacre that occurred. You could explain it a little bit, actually.
So yeah, there was this cat called Benjamin Ng, man. He was a little bit, so like I said, I gravitated around foreign-born, right? And so they had their own little clique, the Chinese, and they were good friends because another associate of ours, Brandon Wong, his father was like one of the main Chinese guys, and Hing, man, and so he was always a good friend of mine. So I don't know why, but a foreign-born Chinese and a foreign-born Filipino had beef, and they was always shooting at each other, always. And so being that I was with the foreign-borns, I always, Brandon Wong's dad was a good friend of mine back then in high school, and so we always rode with the Chinese.
Oh, so the foreign boy, the Chinese and the Filipinos are what together? They're hanging out together.
No. They was beefing.
They was beefing.
The foreign-borns.
But the foreign-born Filipinos were already beefing with the
foreign-born Chinese.
Chinese. Okay. I thought it was beefing with other Filipinos also.
Yeah, that too.
Oh, okay. I see.
And that too. So like being American-born, so I had beef with the foreign-born Filipinos because of the Chinese, and so when the foreign-born Filipinos came over and took over the Chinatown, the gambling spot, it pushed them Seattle foreign-born guys, Filipinos, out of Chinatown because of that beef right there. So like I had enemies coming and going.
So this whole time period, did you ever go to juvenile hall or experience CYA or anything like that?
Fortunately, I never got it, but I waited till I turned 18 to catch a beef. So I got.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the first time you went to county.
So I was well, the first time.
You said 18?
Yeah, at 18.
Okay.
Remember, I said I had beef in Alaska with. So when I first clicked up with that particular group of guys and beat somebody up in the bunkhouse. And one of the guys escaped from the bunkhouse that we were terrorizing that night, and went and got the police, and they came in and arrested me and one of my homeboys, right? And they took us to jail in Alaska, which is the cannery town was so small, a place called Dillingham, Alaska. And from there, they flew us to another jail in one of them little planes, had us cuffed and flying over the Bering Strait, that freezing ass.
So basically a boat plane.
Yes,
boat plane, yeah.
They had that. And so they took us to Kodiak, Alaska. And so we stayed in jail there for like about a month or two only. And because the witnesses were from Seattle too, the foreman sent them back to Seattle so they wouldn't be in Alaska. because Alaska's so big and spread out, but it wasn't like a big city or nothing. These were like little country ass towns, but all secluded. So we beat the case after, about a month or so in some little jailhouse in Kodiak, Alaska. And they put us out on the streets, and we had to get one of them boat planes back to Dillingham to get our plane ticket, because the cannery paid for our ticket to go back to Seattle.
So was that your last trip to Alaska right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you came out of jail and you went back home and you went back to Alaska again?
Yeah, they didn't want me in the union.
So you actually didn't get charged with the crime?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, they dismissed it.
Dismissed
but then
it, right?
I came back to Seattle, and I had beef with this other dude, and they ended up charging me for shooting this guy.
Wait, before we get there, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're still like in your teenage years, 18 right here. Were you
Teenage years,
were you drinking, doing drugs, partying, or anything yet?
Straight drinking.
Straight drinking.
Straight drink. I'll take it back, though, because see, living with foreign-born people and then American-born too. So I told you, my auntie, I had a cousin that was from the Bay Area who was deep off in it, dealing and stuff, and he was like making big money. And every once in a while, he'd come up to Seattle and ask us to, like, back then there was a thing called barbs, right, for barbiturates. And there was a thing going around where people would take downers. It would either be speed or downers. And so he would drop off like 1,500 pills, and we'd sell them and make money. And it was just a good price from California to Seattle. So we got involved in that kind of stuff. So I was always in that criminal lifestyle from a young age.
Oh, you were doing that at a young age already?
Yeah, we was in high school still, some of that. Those time periods get a little bit confused, man. You got to remember, I'm an old-ass man now. But, I know in my teenage years, that's where it all started from that Alaska trip. And I went to jail, and then hanging around those guys from Chinatown, being in gambling.
It sounded like you jumped off the porch at 14, 15 years old.
15.
15 years old, yeah. And it just went from there.
It went from there. And because first, I was just doing the... man, I tell you, so I've been in this movement work for a long time, and so let me just say this: everything that I'm telling, these stories of my life that I'm telling, I don't mean to glorify this lifestyle in any way, shape, or form, because the last 10 or 15 years of my life, I've been out there in the community trying to prevent others from following in footsteps like mine. So, this is my disclaimer that I'm not glorifying any of this lifestyle.
Yes, sir. We got you, OG. All right. So we go back to you was already slanging in Seattle, and then you got sent to Alaska. You got your first case right there, and you got sent back. Now you got sent back. I know. And how long is it from the time you got sent back until you got a bid?
Oh shit. I didn't catch my first prison bid till I was 30 years old.
Okay, so let's talk about when you got back to 18. You said you got in trouble with some of your enemies.
So I had a girl at the time, and so when I came back, because man, the guy that got arrested with me in Alaska, his name was Boise, right? And he was like the head dude of this little clique we had, and so. All of a sudden, I'm like, elevated in status because me and him came back from getting out of jail. The foreman had to send our victims back to Seattle so they wouldn't be able to testify against us and stuff. So when I get back to Seattle, man, my head gets swollen because, I made it to the upper echelon.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. So, that gave me access to. When I got to the gambling house, as soon as, I knocked on the door, man, it opens for me, and the fellas, when we go to Chinatown, we go to a restaurant, man, all the restaurant owners and everything would serve us free drinks and free food just so we wouldn't start fights and tear up their restaurant. Hey, just be mellow, you guys, what you want to drink. And so we kind of had carte blanche in Chinatown. And then right before, I was coming back from San Diego, as a matter of fact, in my teen years. And I had came back, and there had just been a big shooting in Chinatown. And it was from guys that I eventually clicked up with, but it was the Chinagate murders, where this guy mistake another guy for a Filipino op and just blasted him inside a restaurant. And there was a big old scandal about that. That was in the newspapers, and that was the Chinagate, the Chinagate shooting. You know, in comparison to California, I don't think Seattle could ever rival California because this is where gangbanging and all that started. But you got to think back. In my day, it was the Joe Fong and the Wah Ching era.
It was like criminal. It's like organizations.
Yeah. And it wasn't gangbanging over colors. You know, it was over territories and stuff. And so, like, we was trying to hold on to Chinatown. You know, and you know, for since the 30s, like I said, the Filipinos had a presence in Chinatown, in Seattle, Washington, and so we always had a that base of operations, I'll say.
Oh, cool. That's good to know.
Yeah.
I did not know that. So did you graduate high school?
Nah. I came close though. So my sister, you know, trying to keep me out of trouble, asked me to say, just give me 1 year in San Diego, right? And so she begged me. I said, okay, I'll give it a try. But I know that, you know, my sister and brother-in-law were squares, and it was far removed from anything I had been doing. And so I tried to go to high school at Castle Park.
So you came down here at 18?
No, at 17.
At 17, before you went to Alaska.
This was right before I went to Alaska.
Okay.
Because, matter of fact, it's why I went to Alaska. So I tried to get situated in my senior year at Castle Park. At that time, I was there with my sister and brother-in-law, who I'm with right now, right? And he decided that he was going to move up to Washington to join officers candidate school in the military, right? And I said, no, I came all the way here to get, you know, to go to school and change up how I had been living, right? And you guys are going to up and leave right back to Seattle? And so, like, man, I was 6 months away from graduating, January, my senior year. And they left. I said, well, I'm staying. And so I got an apartment at the JLJ's right there in Chula Vista. It was like, you know, some rundown-ass apartments. But instead of paying my rent, I bought a kilo of weed and tried to sling that to supplement my income at age 17, you know. And that didn't go good, so I ended up in Seattle. So everybody's telling me in the family, what are you going to do now? So I'm going to go to Alaska, you know, like everybody else been doing for years and years. And then, like I said, my cousin was already up there.
It was like a hustle at that point in time.
Yeah.
Like everybody going to Alaska to work.
Exactly that, because, you know, it was called you get a guaranteed money. So
was it deep into the Filipino community? Like everybody was going to Alaska? Was it just Filipinos?
Only Filipinos.
Only Filipinos? Okay.
Only Filipinos. And that union was strictly Filipinos.
Okay.
The white people had a warehouse union or something, but we didn't get none of their good ass jobs, right? And I remember the day they came when we got to Dillingham. The plane landed on a gravel runway, so a big old cloud of dust when the plane touched down. I said, "Damn! I thought we was crashed or something." And then they told us to throw our stuff in the back of a pickup truck. I had a duffel bag, and when we got out of the truck into the bunkhouse where Filipinos lived, these people came out of the kitchens and the laundry, these buildings, the support buildings around where the bunkhouse where we stay. They said, Filipinos are here, Filipinos are here, Filipinos are here. And it was a trip because they all came out the dock to look at us. And this is my first time coming from the city, you know. And I'm wearing leather coat and jeans and stuff at the time. And these people are wearing rubber boots everywhere they go, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was like, I don't know. It just gives you a like you know you're on a pedestal or something, because they looked forward to the Filipinos coming every year at that certain time.
Okay, so let's go back to the situation where you said when you arrived and you got a little trouble with a enemy that you had over in Seattle already, right?
Yeah. So.
And did you catch some time for that with that trouble?
Fortunately, I beat that case too. What happened was one of my crime partners and my cousin, right? We used to do stuff together and hustle, and we had a beef over a female, you know. And so I confronted the guy and said, "Look, man, if you want my female, go ahead, but don't force her into doing something she don't want to do." And this dude was a Golden Glove boxer out of Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was half Filipino too. And that's why he was around, because he got, real infatuated with the Chinatown life. That had brought him around, right? So anyways, man, she said, man, I'm going to kick your ass, whatever. So it was an on-site thing. And I knew I couldn't whoop this dude, so, I was strapped up.
Yeah.
And so I went over there and confronted my cousin at his house and tell him, hey, man, I'm through fucking with you and Gino, man. Fuck that dude and all of that, right? I'm never fucking with you guys again, man. You're my family and all this and that. And all of a sudden the homie said, hey, Andy, Gino here. He wants to talk to you outside. So I know, man, it's time to get him up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not letting this dude beat me up. So I'm strapped up and I go outside to see him. And everybody else stayed in the house and we're in the front door. And I'm going to try to talk my way out of it. And he said, man, what this and that. And he started dancing like a boxing around me. And I got both my hands in my pocket trying not to be aggressive. And he socked me in my mouth and I just drew down and shot him. And so he hit the ground and I'm standing there saying, fuck, man, what did I do, right? And I'm young, right? And this dude is laid out on the ground. And my cousin came out, man, get that gun and get the hell out of here.
What do you shoot? What part of the body you shoot him at?
I didn't know. I thought it because I aimed at his head. I hit him in the shoulder.
Hit him in the shoulder right here?
And hit him here, and it came out the back of his tricep, but he laid down. And so my cousin came out and said, man, get out of here with that gun and shit. Because he said, my dad already called 911. And then my uncle comes out, Andy, damn it, man, what do you do now? Putang ina, And I'm saying, oh, shit, And so I get in the car and leave. And so I take me and my girl, and we jumped on a Greyhound, and I left town the next day. So I go get situated in New Orleans because my sister was down there, and I always knew I had a home down there, somewhere to go. So I go get a job, and they sent charges to me in the mail, and for attempted murder. And so one day I'm gonna go to a club and get in some beef in Louisiana.
Wait, so you fled from the situation. Now you have like a warrant for your arrest.
A warrant for my arrest.
And you're in Louisiana.
And I'm in Louisiana.
And trying to lay low. You're laying low in Louisiana.
Got a job.
And you're, what you say, how old you were, 19?
Yeah.
You was usually doing this at 19?
18 or 19, yeah.
Okay.
And so, and man, I'm down in Louisiana, man, and man, that jail system ain't nothing that you ever seen up here on the West Coast. But it's my first time in jail,
Okay. How did you end up in jail in Louisiana? They caught up with you?
So look, back then, this is a disco era. Right, what's he call it? John Travolta and shit.
Yeah.
So me and my girl at the time, we was pretty good at that shit. And they would have this Wednesday night dance contest. You win $100, right? Which was, or $50. It was big money at that time. And we went to there to go enter the dance contest. And we was all the way in the finals. We was guaranteed first, second, or third, right? And we're waiting for our turn to dance again. And I went outside to smoke a cigarette or do something. And for some reason, I get into it with some white dude, and the police are there. And when they carded me and asked me for ID, I had a California license because I never had a Washington license because of tickets I got when I was a juvenile riding mini bikes and shit, right? But when I came to San Diego for that short time, I got a California license, right? So they ran my card, and they said, hey, man, he's got a fugitive warrant out of Washington. And I'm saying, oh, shit. And so, man, I got booked right there. And they said, well, who are you, man? You try to kill somebody or something? And that's these Louisiana people.
And you're saying they had this 1970s?
Yeah, the NCIC.
And they was able to get the information from Seattle into Louisiana and send that and gather the information at that time too?
Yes. It was called the NCIC. They still use that today. It's the National Crime Investigation something, right? NCIC. They run those checks on you now to see if you can go visit somebody. It's that kind of, it was real primitive at the time.
Yeah.
But once you get entered into it, they put all fugitives into this thing. And that was the beginning of the computer era.
Okay. That's like the first, when they start forming the database on it.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. And so NCIC, they get a fugitive out of Washington. So I said, Washington, what are you talking about? I didn't shoot nobody, right? So I get down there to the jail in there, man, which was crazy. They call it Jefferson Parish Prison.
Yeah, I'm familiar. Down in the West Bank.
The West Bank,
Bank,
right?
yeah.
And so yeah, this was called Spanky's in Gretna. Was the club I went to. I remember, but they they don't have a county jail. They have a parish prison, and you might like if you get charged with something, you could stay in parish prison or county, like we call it, for up to like 3 or 4 years, waiting just to go to court. Yeah, man, I'm not staying in here, man. I didn't. I mean, when they were booking me in, I didn't know was I gonna go with blacks or whites, because blacks talk about fucking you and shit right off. You know, figure I'm a 18, 19-year-old kid. I got long hair and shit. You know, man, to be real, I was scared to death. You know, and so when they brought me to court, they said I could fight extradition, and if they don't come and get you in 90 days, we'll kick you loose. But if they do come and get you, you know. So in any case, yeah, I waived extradition, said, yeah, get me out of here. I want to go back to Washington because I didn't do this, you know. So I stayed in jail down there for a couple of weeks, and they brought me back to Washington, at which time Mom's was up in Washington, and I bailed out the next day, you know.
Oh, so you was able to bail out from that, was it murder case?
No, it was
attempted murder case.
Attempted, right?
Attempted, okay.
But my lawyer, my public defender, told me, he says, hey, this is a list of witnesses. At least you shot somebody in front of them. I said, witnesses? Those people tell you I wasn't even there. That's my family on your witness list, you know? And I fought the case for like 7-8 months, and finally, what really happened was, the dude that I shot was going through a divorce with his wife, and I worked out a deal with him, and he said, if I give him $800 so he could go to wherever he was going, right, to leave town, then he won't show up for court. I said, bet. And he said, okay, shoot me the money. I said, nah, I'll shoot you the money when you leave town. I'll meet you at the airport, the train station, wherever you're going to go, and I'll give you the money there when you get on. And that's how we did it. And so he left town, and I just had to go to court every month, you know, for about, till the judge told the prosecutor, if you don't produce a witness by next court date, I'm dismissing all charges. And, you know, the prosecutor won extension for a couple months, but eventually they dropped the case because nobody was there to testify against me.
Shout out to the homie that didn't testify.
Yes,
yeah.
To the family.
Because you could have gotten yourself in a lot of trouble from that situation.
So
too.
back then they had 2 different life sentences. They had a 7-year life and a 13-year life. But at the ages of 17, 18 years old, right?
Red light.
Is
1 second, record, stop recording. No, press red. Hold on. I got it. You got it. Yeah, now it's recording. Okay. So they had 2 life sentences at 17, 18?
Yeah, so you either get a 7-year life or a 13-year life, you know? Because that back then they had parole and good time and all that shit. Mm-hmm. But at 18 years old, 19 years old, 7 years or 13 years, that's an unbelievable. I can't do that much time. Yeah. You know, I was scared to death, you know? And although my cousin, who had already been to the joint, you know, was saying they ain't shit, but I was scared, you know, but I got to fight from the streets, and like I said, there was no witnesses or nothing, and finally got dismissed. And I was saying, man, I pray, man, God, if you help me beat this case, I'll be good and never, you know, own a gun again. So I lied to myself, you know. So I beat the case, and so now, you know, you get that feeling.
How did you were you fighting the case out on bail?
Yeah, from the streets.
On the streets, okay.
Yeah, that's how I was able to talk to dude, my so-called victim and shit, and work out that deal to pay him $800. Cause see, like before this shit happened, man, it was me, him, and my cousin, and we was, like I said, crime partners, man.
Oh, so he was very close to you. He was at one point.
At one point we were close, man.
Okay.
And so my girl comes home one day, and so like, because of the shit that happened in Alaska and all that shit, right? Me and my girl, man, we were like staying from hotel and in rooms in Chinatown, and the bro that I was hitting these licks with was his wife, and my girl, like they'd get together. He had his own apartment over here in the South End in Seattle, and so one day she tells me that, hey, he pinned her up against the wall and tried to kiss her, right? And I said, what? And so I told old boy, I hit him up on the phone, and I told him, man, if you want my girl, man, go ahead, man, but don't force her to do something she don't want to do, fool. And I'm through fucking with you, you know, that kind of bullshit. And he said, what that bitch tell you, and this and that, you know. I said, man, fuck you. And he says, man, I'm gonna whoop your ass right now, man. He said, stay right where you're at. You know, I'll come to your mom's house right now. And I said, well, I won't be here, but you know where to find me in Chinatown, boy. You know, like that. Because that was my spot, man. Chinatown. That's where we held it down, right? And so from there, that phone call I hung up, I went to my cousin's house. Because it was me, him, and my cousin, and we were close, you know. And I felt took that as a stab in the back, but I ran to the homies, grabbed a strap, and went over there. And he happened to like knock on the door.
Okay, and now after you got the case dismissed, right? How old were you? How did it feel?
I was probably about 19 by then.
We were relieved, right?
Man, you know, like I was, every month I went to court, I was afraid that was going to be the day they take me into custody. You know what I mean? And my mom's was alive, rest in peace, man. Used to come to court with me every month, you know, just in case I went to jail. And I was damn near prepared to do that until I worked out the deal and homeboy left. And then court was easy. I don't worry about it, Mom. You know, Gino's gone. And so homeboy was getting a divorce from his wife and he split. So, you know, at that point, going to court was no thing because I knew he wasn't going to be there, you know. And then what happened in life, man, and after that, man, it was just like drugs into the scene.
Oh, so you started getting heavy on drugs.
Yeah.
So you're like, after beating this case, you're like 20, 21 years old?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
And then after that, what kind of involvement were you still involved in the streets, and or did you get heavier?
I never left the street life after that. Never left the street life. So after that happened, things were getting real crazy in Chinatown. And there was like a lot of a new gang popped up in Seattle called Gulagu, and it was somebody else, another group of guys. And what happened was somebody from that group was murdered, and I guess the suspects were from my group, you know, and I wasn't around at the time, but they never did arrest anybody for it because they didn't have anything, right? But some guys from my group was always the suspects, and so it made me want to get out of Seattle because they was in China. The detectives was in Chinatown, jacking people up every day, you know, trying to get somebody to flip, I guess, right? And so that's when I split, and then boom, the cannery murders happened. So, like I said, since the 1930s, Filipinos had this union to dispatch people to Alaska, and so like people, all the migrant workers, they would like work in the fields here in California during the summer, and then during salmon season and king crab season, they'd go up to Washington to get a dispatch. And so what it was, like if you came from California, you go pay the union officer $200, say, let me get a dispatch. And he'll say, okay, so you just buy your ticket in to the head of the line of the union. Well, some younger Filipino guys wanted to do the reform thing, and they got the old man, this Baruso guy, outvoted him in the union. They did union reform. And so for the guys in that clique that I used to hang out with, it messed their whole hustle up. That was their gambling and, you know, their dispatches. You know, they can't send people to different parts of Alaska to run gambling. And they went in there and
that was their money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so somehow they set it up, and they went and assassinated these two guys in the new union. And shit never been the same since.
And the guys that did it were Chinese?
No,
they're Filipino. So the
yeah.
Filipino did to the okay.
Yeah, and so like one of the guy's sister, man, vowed to never let her brother's death go unavenged, and so the two shooters were convicted right away. But they said it was a conspiracy all the way from President Marcos, saying that Marcos sent hitmen to get rid of them because they were also trying to overthrow the Marcos government. Because remember, President Marcos had martial law over the Philippines.
Yeah.
So they tried to this guy's sister was trying to establish the connections. And so 10 years after the cannery murders, the old president of the union, the old guy, Tony Baruso, he was an old timer. He had been president of the union for years and years, and he got caught with one of the murder weapons 10 years later.
Oh wow. Okay.
You know, and he got it for conspiracy, and they gave him life without, and he passed away in prison a few years back.
So after all this stuff happened in Seattle, it made you move to Louisiana
And San Diego.
They moved to see. Where did you go first?
Louisiana at that time.
Okay, at that time.
Yeah.
So you 21 years old, living in Louisiana. What was going down?
And so this was excuse me. So I go to Louisiana. One of my homeboys from Seattle, Filipino dude, you know, he was from Delano, California. And man, I don't wonder what happened to old Danny, man, because he almost got killed in a knife fight in Delano gambling house, and he had like scars all over his body. But hey, me and him decided, let's get out of Seattle right now before, you know, something happened. So I take him to New Orleans to live with my sister. We got a job. I was doing sandblasting and painting on those offshore oil rigs, and he got a job. He was working for the same company but working in the welding shop, and so he went down there with me. And then my cousin got out of jail in Seattle. Danny says, man, I can't take these prejudiced ass people down here, and I want to go back to California. So he got paid 1 week and took off and came back to California. And I went to stayed there working in the offshore oil rigs. My cousin got out of jail in Seattle, and I said, you want a job? Because he was going through a breakup with his girl, a heartbreak, and he wanted to get out of Seattle. So I bought him a ticket, and he got a job with me down there in Louisiana, right? And so it was I wish I would have never left that one, but so we used to go on them offshore oil rigs, right? And you work 21 and 7. So you stay out there for 21 days, and then you get 7 days
I heard
off.
you make a lot of money doing this job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, 21 days you can't spend the money. You're out there on an oil rig.
Yeah.
They fly you out there on a helicopter, drop you off on the platform. They take off, and then you come back in for 7 days. So we didn't know where to get no drugs or nothing and party. We having pocketfuls of money, right? We said, well, let's go visit Cousin Al when we get off this week. So we got tickets to go to San Francisco. I was going to stay there for 3-4 days and then come back to work. So boom, we go to California, start getting high with my older cousin, and he's already strung out and stuff, and he gets us going. So I party with him.
Is this the first time when you taking that load of money? This is the first time you experienced heavy drugs?
Well, I used to chip, you know, like it'd be around, right? The older homies would have heroin, and I'd snort it here and there because they put it in front of me. I'll put some cocaine. They would freebase it back then, using ether and stuff. This was before crack.
Okay.
You know, and we'd try that out. And so, you know, we always want to do that, you know, because we had all this money. And
you just did it. So you at that point in time, at 21, you just did it occasionally, like whenever.
Occasionally, you know.
Okay.
And so I thought it would be fun to go up there for a week and do it because, you know, I didn't even know what the risk was of becoming hooked to it, you know, because that never even entered my mind that you could get hooked on it, you know, and because I was so young and inexperienced. So I go, and my cousin, he's a dope fiend, the hope to die dope fiend already, and he talks me out spending all my money, and he says, look, bro, I got this lick, because I said, all the money I got left is my plane ticket back to work. And my other cousin that went with me, he said, hey, I'm not going back, fuck it, I'm staying here with Al. And I said, no, I'm going back to work. And so, but anyway, my cousin talks me out spending my airfare. He says, man, we're going to get it on Sunday, I promise you, man, I promise you. And I said, yeah, okay. So I go with him to hit a lick, and what happens? I catch a case, and I get to jail for a burglary case in San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, so you left to go have a week break?
A week break.
And you caught a new case?
And I ended up staying there for 6 years.
Oh, you ended up staying there for 6 years. Okay, let's go over the situation that happened then. Like, how did it all transpire? So you gave up your ticket money. So obviously you had plans to get it another way.
Right. And so my cousin tells me, hey, we got to hit this lick. And it was at a Grossman's, I guess it's called it was kind of like a Home Depot type thing back in that day, right?
Yeah.
And so he said, yeah, all we do is cut a hole in the fence. We're gonna get these lawnmowers, and I got them sold already, right? So we clip the fence and go inside, and we're stacking the stuff up by the hole of the fence. And I hear cars coming in the driveway. Shh, you know how you hear tires on the ground?
Yeah.
Oh fuck! I said that's police, and he said let's go. And so we ran out the hole, and we go jump in this field of grass, and we see the police start coming around the building, surrounding it. But we're about 100 yards away, watching them in the grass, and they're on the mic. Come out of there. We know you're in there. If you don't come out within 1 minute, we're gonna send the dogs in. Blah blah blah. Right? And so my cousin, what you want to do? I said, man, I don't know. He said, I don't want to get bit, so let's make a run for it, right? I said, yeah, fuck it, let's go. And so we waited to the time, and we try to break across this field and run. And they say, there they go. And so they chase after, they catch me, and my cousin fell like, man, not even 10 yards away from me. And they missed him, and he stayed crawling in that field all night. And they took me in, and they were saying, oh, yeah, we got your boy next door. He's telling on you, man. Well, why don't you tell me his name? If he's telling on me, why don't you ask him then, you know? Yeah. They tried to play that old bullshit, and they even, like, made noise like I could hear voices in the next room. But in any case, I ended up staying there, and, you know, he was strung out, and I didn't even know. All I know, I was there with a couple pairs of pants and a couple shirts because I didn't plan on staying there very long, and I'm stuck at his wife's house with her kids, and she ain't, you know, got money to pay for another mouth to feed, you know. And I didn't know nothing about stealing and boosting because that's what he was, a booster, right?
Yeah.
So I ended up hooking up with the girl next door, and this Puerto Rican girl, and I ended up marrying her. But her family was into, this is back in the 80s, right? Early 80s now. And that's when the yayo was, you know, in full effect. And her whole family was into it. And so I stayed down in San Francisco, the Bay Area, for like 6 years, you know?
Okay. This is after you, did they charge you with robbery or anything like that? What did you get charged with when they caught you?
I ended up pleading it down to petty theft or some shit like that. Oh, petty theft? And I got probation.
Was it a felony or still a misdemeanor?
It was I don't remember, but I think it was a petty theft or a burglary. Because they had a 484, 666, and a 480.
So this is the first crime you've been convicted of?
Yes.
All right? Not charged of, but convicted of right here.
Convicted of.
Okay.
And I forget what it was because your second one, they call it petty with a prior in California. And that's definitely a felony. Yeah. And so what happened was I got probation on that one. And then as years went by, man, and I got strung out, and for really strung out, I started boosting and stuff with them, and then so whenever you get caught stealing out of store, that's county time because. So
you came out on probation and you got married. You were with a girl.
I was with a girl.
You were with a girl, and how long were you with her before you married her? You got to be young, 21, 22.
2 months, yeah, that's it. I was like young. And so I remember.
Shouts out to your ex-wife.
Man, Olga, I'm sorry that it went down like that, man. I still got love for you, girl.
That's quite a while ago. Yes.
I wonder if she'll see it, man. I'm divulging stuff I've never divulged before.
Yeah.
You know, right here, right now. You know that? And I'm thinking right now, but I'll talk to you later about that.
She kept you there for 6 years. So what was happening within those 6 years when you came out?
I was living that yayo life, man.
So you were just
Slang.
Strictly on slanging yayo. Were you on it all the time also?
I mean, you know, like we would do lines.
Were you doing heroin in that time also?
I was still chipping.
You're still chipping, okay.
But that's when I found out that you can get hooked on it because my cousin lived right next door, right? Because I ended up with the girl next door. And so I'm doing good, right? You know, she's taking care of me. I'm running for her brother's slang, her uncle's slang, her auntie's slang, her cousin's slang.
Oh, okay.
So it was a big old circle, right? And they was plugged into the Colombians back then, you know? That's when it was real cocaine. That was the Pablo days and shit, when that shit was flooded, right?
Yeah.
So doing that, and so like I would just sneak right next door. I'd give my cousin some money. Say, hey man, you want to get high? Go get me and you a bag, right? And then I just, you know, dip next door real quick and then get high with him and then go back home and kick it with you know, because he didn't get along with my wife's family. He just didn't like them, you know. There was some kind of grudge there. In any case, he's rest in peace. Alan, rest in peace. You know, would talk me into, hey man, go get some, let me get us a bag. So I started doing that shit every day because I always had money in my pocket. And then one day, I'm feeling sick and I didn't know what it was. And he told me, boy, you got the Fillmore flu, I said, what? He says, yeah, you dope sick, fool. And I didn't know what it meant, right? And he says, come on, let's go get a sack. And so I go and get a sack and we fix it. And I said, that feels good. From that day on, man, I was off and running,
So
and I stayed with her for 6 years, man.
you didn't get in trouble with the law for 6 years. That whole 6 years you were with her. You was able to slang and do all that and not have any issues.
Yeah, but then things got shaky between her and I was strung out, so I started boosting, and then I started catching boosting cases, 90 days here, and she'd always take me back, until finally I caught a year in the county. She took me back, but I was just saying I ain't worth this. She was like controlling my life, with that stuff because her family and stuff, had all this, had all the yay and stuff. And it was just like, it was hurting my manhood too much, because she'd be like, trying to, I was stuck to her, so to say. So I did that year in the county, and I hooked up with a road dog. And when I came out, I went back to her, and she was trying to, like, you can't hang out with your friends and type shit like that, right? And so I just said, fuck it, man. And I bit her uncle for like a half an ounce or something, and I booked to Seattle.
Okay,
She still had paperwork on me because we're married now at this point, right? So when I caught my case in Seattle, when I caught the murder beef, right, I was still married to her, but then I had AJ's mom and stuff.
Okay. Before we get down to there, let's talk about the time you left. So you had to stay there from like what, 26, 27?
Yeah.
With her?
Exactly. But you're pretty good on the numbers, man, because that's exactly right. I was about 26, 27, and she was 6 years older than me.
Oh, she was 6 years older than you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And let me see. That happened when I was 21, 22. 6 years, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe I was 21 when I first got there. But I was a young buck.
So all right, let me ask you one question from that time period. And through the whole time you were staying with her and slanging, doing all that, what was one of the craziest things that happened that you can remember?
One of the most craziest things?
Or just a memory that stays with you. Doesn't have to be crazy,
Yeah. One is walking into the house with her uncle. There was two things, actually, that really, really stuck in my mind. Is that... he says he always had a big sack, right? And we carry around the scale. Back then it was triple beams and shit in the trunk. And, we'd weigh out ounces or quarter keys or quarter pounds and shit like that, right? And one day he brings me in. He says, just don't say nothing, man. We're going to go see the Colombians. Don't say nothing when we go inside. Because I was basically just, on his back 24/7, his uncle. And we'd stay in the bar every night till 2 o'clock till they closed, because that was where he did his thing, making deals, right? But he tells me, hey, just don't say nothing when we go inside. Just let me talk and be quiet, And I said, yeah. And I walked in the house, and there's Colombians sitting around, a trap house, right? But there was a pile of cocaine on the kitchen table. I swear it was at least about that high off the table. And I looked at a glance, and I didn't want to look at it. I didn't know how to act from that moment on, because I'm sitting in here with some Colombian dudes. They look like killers and shit, and I know all that cocaine they didn't play, because this is Scarface days and shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, that stuck with me. It scared me. And another time is one of the Colombians that he dealt with, one of their people had got busted. And they were trying to bail her out of jail, or him or her. And they didn't have no collateral. And, the bail bondsman will only take care of that amount of bail if you have collateral, right? And I forget what it was, but he said, come with me. We got to go pick up some money. And my wife, at the time, sister, was going to put up their house for the connect, right, to bail out. And so he says, come with me to go get the bail money. And we go to this car wash, and this is over there in the Mission District in San Francisco. And we pull up, and then he pulls up. They flash lights, And we pull up next to the car, and he rolls the window down, and a sack comes flying in the window, right? And bam! And it lands in the car. And he says, "Grab that!" And then both cars take off in different directions. And there was 80 grand in the sack. You know, that was bail money. But that shit just, you know, stuck out in my head.
Wow, yeah. I remember that one too.
Yeah, I said, "Fuck, man, this is the real shit," you know. Yeah.
So it seems like there's a big connection between San Francisco and Seattle. Like,
I don't know.
As the criminal
So, you know, like I said,
organization was.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but for me, it was my cousin that lived down there.
Okay.
You know, but and then for like Brandon Wong, right? His dad, man, you know, the Chinese, right? There's like this Wong banquet every year for it. What does he call it? Is it
the Hop Sing To, right?
the Hop Sing?
To, yeah.
Yeah. So Brandon's dad is in Hop Sing.
Yeah.
He's in the Hop Sings. What is it called?
It's like a Chinese banquet
Community
community organization. Yes.
Yeah,
the Hop
you
Sing To,
heard of Shrimp Boy, right?
Yeah.
You heard of Shrimp Boy, right?
Yes.
That's Brandon's godfather, and we were down there one year, and he took everybody out to party. You know, I mean, that's when I was with Suzanne.
Okay.
And so I still got pictures of that too. We went to the Wong Association. That's what it was, the Hop Sing Association.
Yeah.
And so me and Brandon's dad was friends. So we was like the only non-Chinese in the whole banquet. And I'm sitting with Brandon's dad, and they're like bringing us fresh bottles of Hennessy. Kept it going. The food kept it going. Whenever, you know, the bottle got low, they'd come.
Yeah, I think so. I think I was there to attend one where they was actually giving out community organizations for leaders in the community that's been doing work in the community, and they was passing out awards for that.
Was you at the one in L.A.?
Shouts out to Hop Sing To, man. They're a really good organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, man, Brandon's dad, man, they to this day they still go. Even though Brandon's dad had a stroke and he doesn't talk as well to this day, but Brandon still brings him down. They go every year, and they hit those banquets from Portland all the way to the Bay Area. But back in the day, when the Waching Joe Fong boys war was going on, after that shooting at Golden Dragon in San Francisco,
Yeah, the big one.
and they came up to Seattle to lay low, and I remember Brandon's dad taking care of them.
Yeah, what's the name of the restaurant that happened at?
Golden Dragon.
The Golden Dragon. Yeah, that's a very big. I bet you a lot of people know about that case, the Golden Dragon case.
Yeah. You know, and I just remember, man, all of a sudden we got new Chinese guys in Seattle. You know.
So you was actually around when that Golden Dragon
I was a
shooting.
kid.
You
man.
was a kid, huh?
I was a kid.
Dude, was that how did that shooting affect the neighborhood? Did it just with pure quiet after that?
Well, I don't know how it did in San Francisco, but we was in Seattle, and you know, we would just say, "Oh man, that's Hing's got guests and stuff," and so, you know, we'd go to dances and stuff, and there was just new faces around.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And ain't nobody say, "Well, who is that?" You know?
Yeah. Also, he was looking out for the little homies or the little brothers.
That was you know, like his dad, man, was he's up there. He was later on in life, Hing became the president of Chinatown in Seattle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and his name always packed weight. Like whenever we go anywhere, it's first class treatment.
Is Shrimp Boy out of jail now, or is he?
I think he's back. I think he crossed himself out, got caught again.
Yeah. I think he's doing a lot of time now.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I got pictures right here.
Yeah, that's all right. Free Shrimp Boy. Yeah, free Shrimp Boy. We don't want to get too much about his business. Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, so let's go back to you're back in Seattle now, right? You're about 27, 28 years old. What have you you working? Are you still on drugs at this time, or are you getting yourself clean?
No, man. Let me see. I went back. So I did a year in the county in Santa Rita in Oakland, right? Because when I was, you know, when I got stranded in San Francisco, the Bay Area, my cousin's wife was living in San Leandro. So, you know, we stayed in East Bay. And the girl I married, the Puerto Rican girl, she lived right next door. And so we ended up staying out there. But we would just go to the city every day. And like, wait, man, then my old age is kicking in. So we were just talking about, was I strung out? So,
Yeah.
when I got strung out and I was boosting and shit, right? I did that year in the county, and I had a road dog.
Oh, sure. You got caught up for boosting, and they give you a year in the county.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because my petty.
So you did this in California. Then you were in the California
Yes,
system now.
a California system.
Okay.
And so like, yeah, that's where I started, accumulating my time because of the drugs. You know what I mean? And drugs had me bold being a booster. And so what happened was, I did that year in the county, and then my wife at the time, she was waiting for me and stuff as usual. And then I got out, and so she would try to put a lock on me and didn't want me, so I said, fuck this, I'm cool on this stuff. I don't want to be around here. I don't want to get strung out and stuff. And I ended up going back to Seattle. And I brought my road dog with me from jail. He got out a little bit before me. I got out before him. And I waited for him to get out. So once he got out, man, we jetted from the Bay Area back to Seattle. So this is like 1987, right?
Oh, 1987. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is 1987, and I got to the Bay Area that week. Well, now I was supposed to spend a weekend there, or a few days. It was like 81, 82, because that's when the cannery murders happened. I was in San Francisco, thank God, because I know had I been there, I would have got wrapped up in that.
Because a lot of people got wrapped up in it.
Well, just because of the people that I was hanging out with.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure somehow it would have touched me, So I'm grateful that I wasn't around, because my homeboys, through my journey through prison, they've been there. They was there before I got there, and they were still there when I left.
And they're still there now?
Still there right now. And one of them's getting ready to pass away, man. He had like quadruple bypass surgery and stuff.
How long has he been there already?
Going on 40 years, figured 1981, 82. What did that article say we were reading?
Oh, that's quite a while ago.
How many years is that, 1981?
Yeah.
That's like 40 years, right?
Yeah.
81,
yep,
91,
43.
That's it, man.
We've been in it for 43 years?
Yeah.
Sheesh. Wow.
So
I'm glad he's still alive, at least, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Feel for him, man. And like, about earlier this year, I got to go into this prison in Washington called Stafford Creek Correction Center, because they have the annual API banquet. Remember, this coming up, is when I started a API cultural group. But I got to go back in and see the fellas and stuff, because we support from out here nowadays, doing the community work in the movement. And the homie, man, that was involved in that came up to me and, hey, man, how you doing? I didn't recognize him. That's how much years put on him, and age, he changed it. And I'm saying, like, what's your name again? And he says, me, Jimmy. I said, oh, man, I felt like this big, man, because, that's the homie. But, man, that's what, man, all the years and time did to him, man. He just withered away, bro. And they got to be in their 70s now, But it made me feel bad, bro. And I didn't recognize him.
Wow. Okay. Let's go back to like when you were before your 30s, right here.
Okay. So
before you caught your long bid, right?
Yeah.
So you just came out from doing a year at county. And you on probation then?
What? Whatever I was. Yeah.
You was on probation already.
Yeah.
Did you make it past probation and
no?
graduate?
Matter of fact, I came back to California one more time. So boom, 87. I come back to Seattle, and then I get with AJ's mom. This is 87. So I'm with her from 87 to 90. 90 is when I fell for my beef, right? Okay, so...
Well, let's go back. So you say when you got back to Seattle, you got what your
AJ's mom.
AJ's mom, your son's mom.
Yeah, so from California and that, I go back to Seattle. I end up getting strung out again. So, man, then my girl gets pregnant, I'm out here boosting like crazy. And then this is the middle of crack years too. So then I ended up slinging crack, because that was easy money back then. It was just pouring in all different kind of ways, selling crack to support my habit, But along with working with crack fiends and dope fiends and stuff, you have to carry a pistol to protect yourself. And so that's how that happened. So in 1987, me and my boy are back in Seattle, and I get with AJ's mom, and yeah, I was back in the life again, into the drugs, and that's what I came away with. So at one point in time, I tell his mom, let's go to San Diego with my sister. But one of the homeboys in Seattle had hooked me up with some dude in Los Angeles, and so me and her came down to California, right? The homie, well, this dude introduced us to this Italian dude, right? And this is in like 87, 88. And I go down there, and he's supposed to this dude was in a wheelchair, paraplegic from the Vietnam War, and he said that he was going to introduce us to the Hollywood crowd because he was in a movie with that Conrad guy who played in Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
And he did a wheelchair basketball movie or something. And this guy played the pawn shop owner and a wheelchair basketball player. So this dude, I think he was like living in a fantasy world. He was supposed to like get us into the crowd, and we were supposed to start slinging them weed and Yale, right? And he says, man, here's 30 racks. You guys, make the money. He had this like mafia mentality because he was, I think he was just like, so caught up being in that wheelchair and, stuck in veterans hospitals all the time that he, in his head, he wanted to be a mafia guy, and he thought we was his crew and stuff. Well, anyways, he gives us this money and puts it in a bank account, tells us we could use it how we want to make money. But the homeboy that brought us into that, he takes the money and plays Santa Claus to his family and fucks it off to the point where dude says, man, you guys got to go. But before he fucked off all the money, he tells me, well, Anna, go get your wife and bring her down here. You can have the kid down here. We'll get you guys an apartment, all that stuff. He's high-siding like that. So I do it, and I bring AJ's mom down there, and that's why AJ was born in L.A.
Oh, so okay. Let's say like
this is when not from.
She was pregnant at this time. She was
I
pregnant.
went and got her while she was pregnant to come down there for this a new start. Supposed to be a new start.
Okay.
Well, dude Jackson for all the money and leaves me out in the cold, and me and her stranded in L.A. and my car had blew a head gasket, so we got no transportation, no money, and the landlord's telling us to get the hell out. So we're in L.A. I got a sister here in Louisiana. In San Diego. And so, what happened? Out of a miracle, this is how much God blessed us, right? We go check the mail, and during this day when we got nothing, man, I'm catching a bus from Canoga Park, which is in the San Fernando Valley, into West Hollywood every day, to get a fix,
So well, okay. So you're living out of your car at some point.
No, we had an apartment.
You had an apartment, but you're getting evicted.
Getting evicted, man. AJ's crib was
your son born yet?
He was born.
Okay.
Hey, her water broke on an RTD bus while we was riding from the valley to West Hollywood.
And where were you guys riding?
So we were. Huh?
Where you guys traveling for?
I was telling you, I had to take a bus into West Hollywood every day to get a fix.
Oh, okay. And you had her with you.
And she was with me, and her water broke, and fortunately, this dude that I did know came and picked us up. And the first hospital wouldn't take her because she was on Medicare, or Medi-Cal, whatever you call it, right?
Yeah.
I said, we don't do that. And then we went to the next hospital, and she was dilated so much, they couldn't turn us away. So he was born in Tarzana, up there in L.A., right? And so, yeah. And so, man, he's born. We're getting evicted. I got nowhere to go. My car blew up. And what happened? The job that she used to work at in Seattle before we went to California gave her severance pay or her retirement, and she got a check for 7 racks. And I get saved today, man. We bought a car. We came down here to San Diego, got an apartment, and AJ was there, and then his older sister, because he had an 8-year-old sister, put her in school, was living in Spring Valley, and then I got strung out again. And so I took that as far as it would go down here. Said it's time to go back to Seattle. And with that money, we had bought a car, a little Pinto, I remember, from a family member here, and went back to Seattle.
How long did you stay out here before you left Seattle?
It couldn't have been long because
like a year?
Maybe a year.
A year? Okay.
Yeah, because I got out in 87, and I'll say probably by 88, 89, I was go back because I caught my case in I got arrested November of 1990.
Okay, so let's go back. You traveling back to Seattle with your family? You strung out. So are you going back to Seattle because you're trying to clean up, or are you just trying to?
Yes, of course, man.
You're trying to
that
clean
life,
up, right?
that life there, man. I'll tell you, is a life of trying to get clean and get your life back on track, because that shit robs it from you when you're strung out on drugs. You know, it takes the life out of you, because the only thing you can focus on is the one fix to the next. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I mean I think that's my health issues today, because I abused my body so bad back then. You know, so go back to Seattle, and this is, you know, the late '80s, and then the crack epidemic comes along, right? So I'm slinging crack, and so man, my baby's mom, AJ's mom said, just stay home. Can you just stay home for one night? And I said, yeah. We go out and get the stuff. It was gonna be a movie night. Back then, you rented videos and stuff.
Yeah.
The VHSs and shit.
The Hollywood videos and the stuff, blockbusters and
like that. So we got a couple movies. It was a Sunday, you know. I had my wake up, you know. I wasn't gonna be sick in the morning and shit, you know. And the phone rings, and somebody asked me to bring them down to 80. I said, well, it's just down there. I'll be right back. You know, $80. I'm not gonna pass it up, right? So I go drop off some rocks, and I see the white dude and the white girl. Anyway, it's a lick, right? So my crime partners aren't around at the time. My cousin wasn't there, so I hit up a homie, and he says, well, go get so-and-so. He'll back you up. And so I bring a dude I never worked with for to hit a lick, man, and it all went bad. Somebody died, you know, and I caught my case.
Okay, can we go through? Okay, so basically, somebody orders a sack from you.
Yeah.
$80 sack from you, right?
Yeah,
and you're gonna go deliver the $80 sack to him right
Yeah.
now because he's purchasing it, right?
Yeah.
But instead of going to purchase it, you about to rob him.
Well, I see it, right? And I tell her, this is how it happened. I tell him, look, hey, Suzanne, the girl, the middle person, right, who called me. I says, well, she says, you man, make it a good sack, you know, because he's got a bunch of money in his pocket, man. I know he'll spend if you give him a good one, right? And I said, look, I can't be coming back and forth all night, so just tell him when he's going to get it right now. I'll make it right. She goes, okay, just give us a good 80. So I give him a good 80, right? And I go back home. I say, okay, I'm going to kick back. And like 30 minutes later, she calls me back and says, give us another 80. And I said, man, fuck this. I'm going to get it all right now. Thinking how we think, right?
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I'll be right there. And that was the end.
So
that's where it all ended.
So basically, when you went back to see him, you attempted to rob him.
Yeah.
And then he was struggling back. He was struggling, and then you ended up shooting him, or you just gave it to him.
It's crazy, man. It was. I don't know. I don't want to really get into details of this right now, but you know, it was like that. But it shouldn't have happened. I can just say that.
Okay.
You know, this guy lost his life, and it didn't have to happen. It was purely a mistake on somebody else's behalf. You know, and I'll cleanse him. This is what happened, bro. Is dude was scared out of his mind. They all was. I put all three of them in the bathroom. Told them don't move. You know, and so the dude I was with was scared of me because he didn't know it was the first time we ever worked together. And so he says, no, let me watch him. You go look for the shit. And I say, okay, whatever. You know, I don't care. And by this time, I threw my pistol on the bed. I wasn't even worried about them people in the bathroom. They wasn't going to, you know, there was no threat at all. This fool steps to the bathroom door, and he had some big, thick-ass gloves on, and he misfired his gun and kills the dude on accident.
Oh, okay.
And so I get 20 years for that. And then on top of that, he turns around and tells me and says, I was the one that shot. I was the shooter. You know, and it just went all downhill from there.
Okay.
But it took me a lot of years to realize I'm responsible for that because I'm the one that set it all up. You know, and at first, as my journey went through prison, man, I'm thinking, it ain't my fault. I was in denial, and I had all these excuses why I shouldn't have been there, when in fact it was all my fault. And if it hadn't been for me, dude would have never died, and because he didn't need to die. You know, he wasn't a threat. He wasn't posing no threat or anything. It was just a fluke. You know.
I got you.
But
So that the day it happened, right after it happened, did you go back home and just took yourself on the run?
so this is what happened then. I said, fuck. I didn't know exactly what happened. Like I said, I'm going through the room, right? And I find like a quarter pound of weed, right? Because the dude was supposed to have had a bunch of weed and about at least a rack, on him. And I can't find the cash, man. My dude, man, takes about $80 out of dude's pocket, a minimal amount. I had a quarter pound of weed, some good bud. And when the gun went off, I said, fuck this, I'm out of here, right? I don't even know what happened. But when the gun went off, I went to look over my dude's shoulder, right, into the bathroom. And I see a small hole in the middle of dude's chest, and he just sinks down the counter like that. Starts sliding down the counter, and I said, I'm out of here. And come to find, it was a 22 cal, and it pierced his heart.
Did you grab your piece back from the bed and took off with your piece?
Of course. So I grabbed that and the weed, and I left. And I told dude, man, fuck, what? I'm pissed off. And he said, man, drop me off. And I said, yeah, man, I don't even know you. I never. So I'm on the run, right?
So you go home and grab your family, or you grab your family?
I leave them at home. No, I go and grab them. Come on, we gotta go. And she said, well, we gotta go. And so I grab AJ and his mom and his little sister, and man, it was all haywire from there, man. I get a motel room, and I'm trying to find out what happened. I don't know. And so the first spot I go to, man, what happened at the Arrow? Somebody died, right, at the motel. I said, nah, and they're saying, yeah. So I'm saying, shit, my car's gonna be hot, everything. And it all comes down to the white girl that called me up to deliver the sack, right? Because the other people don't know me, but the girl know me. And she was in the bathroom, scared to death in the bathtub, right? And because her and some little youngster was in the bathtub, and the other dude that passed away was standing outside of the bathtub, and it was on the news in the morning, I was saying, fuck, and so like, okay, this happened in September. And so from September till November 6, 1990, I was on the run.
How long did you last on the run?
From mid-September till November the 6th.
So 2 months to about September, October to November, 2 months.
A month and a half, maybe.
A month and a half. Were you stayed in the city?
I stayed in Seattle. I was trying to get enough money to get the fuck out of there, and shit was coming up. All the crack houses that I used to serve, they was hitting them to try to catch me in there, and my picture was in the paper with a reward, and then they had.
They had you out there already.
Yeah, they had armed and dangerous shit on me.
Did they catch your other guy?
No,
already?
Not yet.
Okay.
Right, and so they have that on me, and I like every time the places where I used to go sling my rocks at, as soon as I would go there, I know people was telling on me because I just like go in for a hot minute and then split, and then come to find out a little while later, the police came in right after you, so they was getting closer and closer. They was hitting in houses that I try to go serve at. I'd shave my head, and then so I got my family, safe at my mom's house, and I was just like, sleeping in a car, or man, just trying to survive, and I was strung out, and I'm hitting up my homeboys, man, help me out, I need, this and that, and I became to be a burden on everybody.
Do you remember those emotions that you felt when you was by yourself sitting in that car, and what you felt in your mind?
And I was lonely, I was scared, I was saying, what the fuck have I done with my life? I know that I'm gonna go away, and then I had my son, which was supposed to be the greatest joy of my life, right?
Yeah.
And
how old was he? He just barely born?
He was like 2 years old.
2 years old already? Okay.
But his sister was born, she was 5 months old. And so I was a newly born. And so his mom was like stuck there. And they were so used to having me take care of him. And I knew I was, man, all the homies and stuff, man, didn't need me around because I brought heat wherever I went. and I couldn't be around them because they was trying to survive and shit, and so like I said, anywhere that I was, the police was like right behind it, and so it just came to the point where I said, fuck it, I'm gonna turn myself in.
Oh, you turned yourself in?
Yeah. And so, yeah, because, man, I couldn't keep doing that to AJ and his mom. And, hit and run. And it was becoming, a struggle just to get motel money.
So what do you remember the date that you chose? And then
November the 6th, 1990.
November the 6th, 1990.
And then I got released from prison on October the 22nd, 2008.
Okay, so
I did straight, yeah.
So when you decided to turn yourself in, you went to say goodbye to your kids and family, and they went with you.
I was with there. I went home. I went home to my mom's house where they were staying, and I told them to come get me there.
So how was it for you emotionally? You told your mom the situation.
Yeah, and she was like scared every time I came around. My mom didn't even want me at the house, but my kids and my girl was there, And I said, I know, and it just was to the point where I wasn't welcome nowhere.
Okay.
My partner ends up getting busted, and I don't know where they caught him at, but so I'm trying to negotiate a deal with them. Well, I forgot about this part. So before the 187 happened, as I told you, I was slinging crack, right? So one night, some dudes tried to rob me, and I ended up lighting their car up, blah, 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 blah. And these fools get pulled over because of bullet holes in their window, and they told on me.
Oh. Okay.
Right. They gave me up, and I said, damn. So I was on the run for that, right? Because they served me papers in the mail for 4 counts of second-degree assault, because one for every person inside of the car, right? And these dudes tried to rob me, and they busted on me first, but I hit the car, and I shot the little window, the rear view side window mirror off.
Yeah.
And a bullet in the windshield, and that's why they got pulled over. And them motherfuckers straight gave me up. So when I go to jail on the 187, right, that those charges came up, and so the prosecutor's saying, if I convict you for one of these, I said, I didn't do that shit. They shot at me first. That's self-defense. And they said, they said, well, you could say whatever you want. If I get a guilty on one of those, you're getting between 400 and 420, 470 months. I said, that's 40 years. I'm like, okay, and so they're telling me to plead out to the murder one, felony murder, and we'll drop the assault. And I say, fuck that, take it to the box. I didn't do those assaults, blah, blah, blah. And then the lawyer says, if you lose, you're washed up, And so it got to the point, all the way to when they brought the jury in for voir dire to pick the jury. And I seen the way that they was, the white people and the judges, and I said, hey, time out. And so I pled out for the bottom of the range on a murder one, 240 months. Dropped the assault.
And which is like, how many years is that?
20.
20
flat
years.
20.
Oh, flat 20.
Yeah.
Okay. So
because in Washington, like they do the 28 to life stuff in Cali. In Washington, they do everything by months.
Okay.
Depending on your points.
Okay. Let's. Is there a percentage that you do?
So look, when I played that 240, I'm thinking I'm gonna get a third off for good time. I'm figuring 13 years. I said I can live with it, right? At that age, I was like 30, 31 years old. And this is my first trip to the penitentiary. All I've ever done was county time. But then I get to the county jail, and they're telling me in July of 1990, they changed the law to all violent offenses, you have to do 85%. And I'm saying, what? So I had that, they're telling me I got to bring them 18 years or 17 something on a 20-year sentence. I'm saying, what the fuck you talking about? No, I signed a deal for 13. And I fought that shit for years, but I had to do the whole 18. And then remember I told you I had a petty theft down here in San Diego that I never got sentenced to.
Yeah.
And so I owed California, since I didn't go to sentencing when I signed for the deal, because I was going to agree to a year in the county or something. And I asked the judge to let me get my family situated, because I got AJ, he's a young baby and stuff, right? let me, just have 30 days to get my family situated. And the judge let me out, and I booked to Seattle.
Oh, wow.
And so all them years that I was locked up, I owed California.
Yeah.
And so I filed my paperwork and asked them to run it concurrent with my murder beat, so that when I got out in '08, that I didn't have to come back here to do them 2 years, right?
Yeah.
And so that worked out, Man, this is starting to get to my ears. But anyway, so yeah, man. And so that happens. And so in 1990, then I hit the joint in 1991. And it was like, man, what did I do with my life? I'm 30 years old, and, I got 20 years to do. And, like the first couple years, I'm feeling sorry for myself and shit, and still in denial, not been able to, accept responsibility for what I did and shit, and also not realizing all the traumatic events as a kid. My father dying at a young age, and being separated in that family, all the stuff that I told you about up until the time of that murder were all based on trauma responses. And this is the stuff that I've since learned doing the work that I do today, right, is social justice work. So when I first hit the penitentiary in 1991, like a first incarceration, comes about like in the stages of grief. The first stage is like denial. The second is like acceptance. The third is accountability, or along those same lines as the grief responses. Incarceration breaks out in phases like that. So at the 5-year mark, you hit this point. 10-year mark, you hit, and it actually is true, and it came to unfold like that. But round about 1994. I was in Column Bay, and when I first got there in 91, it was just me and one other dude were the only APIs on the yard, and I'm in there with all natives, blacks, and whites, right? And then in one little 6-month period, man, that all API people, all others. See, in Washington, the difference between Washington and California is in Washington, they call us APIs, right? And in California, we go by others, the designation, because but it's still the same. On your race cards, you're in Washington, you're classified as black, white, native, or other. No. I think part of my fight was getting us to be called API, because that was what the Washington Commission on Asian Pacific American Affairs was, calling us, and there was a movement out here going on that, we knew nothing about at the time. But all those, other homies start coming to the main line, and I'm saying, well, look, man, there's a veterans club, there's the Muslim club, there's the Native Circle, and all of these different groups, there was the Juneteenth celebrations. Latinos had Cinco de Mayo, and there was a Hispanic club, and others didn't have nothing. And so at that time, I said, well, we need something too. And I started campaigning to start an API group. And so after like 2 years of fighting the administration and writing letters to politicians and stuff, I finally got it approved because Gary Locke, the first Chinese governor of Washington State, who then was a state representative, wrote a letter on our behalf because I accused Washington DOC of either being culturally unaware or blatantly discriminatory. And so they approved the group, and the APICAG was born, and that's my legacy.
And which is a prison organization that you formed, right? That still exists till this very day, right?
Beyond, it has performed in ways that I could have never imagined. It's gone beyond my thoughts of what it ever would be, because when I initially started the campaign, me and young David Ross, he was like my poster child, that I put up there, this 17-year-old young man, doesn't have any forum in Washington Department of Corrections to do anything positive in his life, and we're trying to do this cultural group that will help Southeast Asians to navigate the justice system and let us American speakers help them learn rules and stuff, and represent them in their disciplinary hearings and stuff like that. So that was the dream.
So at this point in time in prison, like how long were you in prison already until this started occurring?
I got there in 91 because the crime happened in 90. I got to the penitentiary in 91. The group was officially recognized in 1994.
Okay, so you've been there three years.
Yeah.
You're 3 years. So you actually started finding like peace and redemption. You didn't get strung out in prison or nothing like that?
No.
You didn't go through that type of phase?
So when I was in prison and finally in county jail, I got clean for the first time in how many years, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I got my mind back, my body back, and all that shit, right? And so I vowed to myself, I said, man, I'm not going to become institutionalized. I'm going to make this be my way of life, man. I'm going to turn shit around. And like you just said, that word redemption, man, it's a big, heavy word, man. That the system doesn't allow some of us to, really have redemption. If you read any of my articles that I've been published, one I wrote telling David Ross a story in mine, because he was being up for deportation, and I says maybe that the system would somehow find or when will we be able to redeem our lives, and this young 17-year-old man got convicted of a crime, but as a young child, he had escaped the killing fields of the Khmer Rouge, and his mom had to bring him to the United States, and he was the translate for a family, because she had so many, she had other children and stuff, and he got caught up in the system, and basically committed his crime as a juvenile. And as we know, brain science has proved that a brain isn't, actually matured in a human being until you're 25 years old.
That's right.
And so they don't let juveniles be given life sentence anymore. Well, David fell into that, but not only that, he is part of this APICAG, which was all positive, that we did, things interacting with the community. We were trying to make videos. This was during the Just Say No to Drugs, Nancy Reagan, and the DARE project and all that stuff issue. And we were trying to do community work from the prison. And at that time on the main line, Bloods and Crips were real prevalent in the early 90s. It was going down in Seattle. The Hilltop Crips and the BGDs, Union Street, and all these other Central District gangs and stuff were hidden in Washington. They were giving out time to people like crazy and just washing these young people up. Well, that was the need, and the APICAG got formed is what we didn't understand, but the administration did, is that when we're fighting each other, they know what to do. They know how to handle us in conflict to each other. But what APICAG did was bring all the races together to work for common goals and to something positive. And then that's when we started getting attention from the community, from politicians in support. And the DOC wasn't going to let that happen. So they rolled me up. They stuck me in solitary for 13 months on some bogus-ass misuse of a telephone infraction, right? And so figuring that if they take me away from the group, that it would die down.
So that's why they had you in the hole.
Yeah.
They had you in the hole because you was trying to form a organization.
I got it approved.
You got it approved.
I had people from the governor's office in Washington coming up to the penitentiary to visit us and meet our group and talk to the group. And I had Crips and Bloods coming to the API meetings and stuff. And
that's a very big achievement, OG. That's a very big achievement.
It doesn't seem like much in my life, but now today, like those articles that you've seen written, my boy Felix Sitevon, my loud brother, man, big out shouts, free Felix, absolutely free Felix. He revived the APICAG. Now there's chapters in about 5 or 6 different institutions in Washington. And so, man, I got to go back inside. I was released in 2008, and it was in 2017 I was allowed to go back into Clallam Bay where I started that group. And I didn't even know Felix at the time, but I got to go in there during a youth summit, and they had a program going where they were working with youth in the community. And out of blue skies, this guy says, we're fortunate today to have the founder of API. And this dude knew the history of the group and my history, and I didn't even know this guy. And he gave me props in front of the community and the institution. And it blew my mind, man. I had tears rolling down my eyes. And
something you should be proud of, because you're doing that much time in prison. You don't think something that positive will come out of it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And something that's a legacy will come out of it. You know, you was able to form a legacy while you were doing time in prison. That's still to this day. You know, so that's a very big achievement.
So that's what I have to say. I owe that to Felix, man. Like, shout out
to Felix. Free Felix.
Free Felix, man.
Yes, sir.
Because to this day, he fights for that. I tried to become a community sponsor, and they wouldn't let my mind and his mind work together on this stuff, because he is doing such things inside the institution as gender justice, domestic violence, internal oppression. He's creating all these workshops and stuff himself, right? Doing all positive work, and not to leave out my boy Billy and Billy, Free Billy. Man, I can't say your last name, bro. You gotta forgive me though. Dumagan. Anyways, the body there. He's going strong at Stafford Creek and keeping that chapter alive, doing the work, internal oppression, trauma-informed justice, which everybody knows about. That's what the homie Lon, I'm sure he was working on, trauma-informed. What we need now in our justice system is trauma-informed lens versus, that punitive lens, because everybody from those 90s era lock them up and throw away the key. That if they would start to look at the root causes of people and why no human being is born inherently violent, these actions and behaviors are learned, and it's through the society that we bring them up in. And if we would stop and look and see why this young man committed that offense and look at the root cause, we might be able to stop it before it escalates into something violent and heinous and stuff, because some of these actions do become that.
Yes.
And like they give this myth and present that violent offender myth. When they say violent offender and things of that nature, it's a label that they created. What they really mean is young black man or young brown man. And that's what they're saying to scare the public from us, you know what I mean? And saying that they're, violent gang members, and, but we're human beings just like everybody else. And given the chance and the same social economic opportunities that the white race gets, then we could thrive as a human beings, as other people, and have generational wealth and those types of things that we've been oppressed from through the years. So that's why I do the work, have done the work, and it's an advanced way above my level of understanding that this next generation doing the work like Lon and stuff. I take off my hat to.
Shout out to Lon, always toy.
Yeah, and don't forget G. He's out here putting the word out, But like this channel here, Tira others, I'm like really hopeful for you getting the word out here and telling stories like mine that let the others be known, man, that we're human beings. We deserve the same opportunities as the next guy.
Yes, sir.
And that those violent crimes that they try to make us, guilty of, we're human beings, and we are set in situations that were created by that 1%.
That's right.
So
during your stretch when you were doing the 20 years, right? What are some of the fondest memories you have from in there?
Oh, most definitely the unity of the others. So, although we're the smallest population inside the correctional institutions, we were the smallest in numbers, but we were the strongest ethnic group because our unity is unequaled in there, and like no other race in Washington State are as unified as API.
Salute.
And top out, it's come to the point where the Washington State Department of Corrections has tried to classify the API as a security threat group. And we were trying to explain to here in the year 2024, we're having still to explain to the Department of Corrections that API is an ethnicity, it's not a gang. And they try to classify us as a security threat group.
Wow.
And it's frustrating. My boy Felix was starting to try to start a chapter. When they tried to isolate him from the group he was working with and send him to another prison, they said, oh yeah, you can have your API banquet, but you got to take the CAG out of it, the Cultural Awareness Group, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a recognized group. And he has to this day explain to him it's not a gang, it's a culture, you know? Well, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about like when you are near going home. Like, you know, like how was your relationship with your baby's, your son's mother and everything like that through the time of your incarceration?
Oh, wow. That's funny because I was sent to McNeil Island in 2005. My release date was 2008. And I divorced her finally. Because I was married from my wife in San Francisco. I was married to her until like 91, 92. We got divorced. And then me and AJ's mom got married while I was in Clallam Bay. Before the group started, somewhere around 1993, 94, we got married. I was getting to go to trailer visits and everything.
Conjugal visits?
Conjugal visits before she left me, which I knew was inevitable.
Yeah.
And so, so she left me, and that was that. I, lost contact with my kids for many years. If it wasn't for my sister, shout out to Sis, who used to come up every year or so and bring my kids to visit me.
Awesome. You gotta love Sis for that. Yeah,
man. She, my sis did the whole 20 years with me,
Yeah.
And so that's another thing people gotta understand when they go away to do time. It's not just them that's doing the time. Their family and loved ones do that time with them, because those are the ones that stick with some people. Like we all claim loyalty to some group, some power group or another, and in reality, the only ones that stay there through thick and thin is the family.
Yes, sir. That's right.
And so people gotta, learn to accept that, and that we can't say fuck it. I don't give a fuck. People say that let's make it happen, but they don't realize that they're involving their loved ones, and the people that love us, man, are the ones getting hurt along with us. So you just can't say I'm doing it to myself.
So on your release day, right? On the day you get released, right? Let's say on the day you find out you're about to get released, how was the emotions and feelings going to nearing your exit after 20 years? Where you feel like you're institutionalized? Was it hesitant to come out?
It was frightening, bro. It was frightening because you don't know what's next. You have all these dreams and hopes. And like I said, shout out to Sis because she was there saying, look, we got you. We have a job for you and stuff like that. And because, she came up while I was down. Her and her husband, man. Shout out to brother-in-law. Successful beyond, imagination. Never thought it could happen to, a family given the way that I was raised and stuff, right? But they came from California for my release, and I was in work release in Washington, and I didn't think the day would ever come, There were some times in prison when it got, real hectic in there and, riots and stuff that you never knew if you were going to go home.
Was your mom still alive when you came home?
Mom, rest in peace. That was one of my goals, was try to make it out for Mom. She just wanted to see me free and doing well. And she passed away in 2005. And I was trying to get to that side of the mountains in Washington, so where she could visit me more easily. But by then, she had came to California to live with Sis, and she was in her elder years and passed away from cancer, and she was trying to hold on, and unfortunately I wasn't able to make it out in time. And that's one thing I wanted to show her, man, that I could change up, and
I believe she sees it. She sees it. Everybody loves them with them right now for sure, and she see it.
And so the APICAG, I didn't ever think that it would mean to me what it means today. And to see these young brothers using it as a vehicle for themselves, you see, it's become something that sustaining strength and something to fight for, to do the good fight. You know what I mean? And they're not there, trying to get over on the institutions or anything like that. They're really trying to transform lives, and so that's what I think it is, and I think that's what the whole United States needs to get to, is that that informed trauma lens. Because if you start looking at the human being instead of the action that they did, then you start to find more solutions. Because it's said like this: those closer to the problem are closer to the solution. And that's us. You know what I mean? We're the ones that live in poverty, and we're the ones that live in the struggle. And so I think the answers will one day come from us.
So let's see. So when you came home, like, I'm familiarized with you doing a lot of community activist work and a lot of prison reform work when you came home. So I don't want to get too deep into that, because I know you affiliate with a lot of organizations and stuff like that. But can you give us, did you coming out of prison and doing the API organization led you to doing all this reform work outside?
Absolutely not, because I never dreamt of it. When I came back, I was focused on coming to work with Sis and the family business that they had built up, And then I came to San Diego, which was here in San Diego, and somehow yours path and my path crossed. And you and I met Mia Lee on the same day.
Shouts out to Mia Lee, of course. One Love Organization.
One Love Organization, Philly, man, shouts out. And Mia Lee was the first one to tell me, hey, you were doing this work when you were in prison, bro. And she told me, and I said, nah, I never did this, right? And she said we could do this in the community. And she told me that was my training, and Mia Lee gave me the start. So I never dreamt in my wildest dreams that work in prison would translate to this community work that I ended up doing out here. And so that day, me and you drove up to LA, to UCLA School of Law, for some symposium.
Yeah.
And we seen old David Ross and Mia Lee sit on a panel. That day changed my life.
Yeah, mine too.
That day changed my life. And we met Dua Thor and Helly Lee. If you remember, they were sitting right in front of us.
Sirac.
Shout out to Sirac and Dua. And shout out to Helly Lee and Marcus Littles.
Sirac does amazing work for the community.
Absolutely, yes. For the Southeast Asian. And shout out to Helly Lee and Marcus Littles of Frontline Solutions. And they're doing the work and have supported me in my journey, man, many times throughout the years.
I know you've been doing a lot of work with troubled youth and trying to get these kids off the streets and trying to keep them out of trouble, And is there anything you could tell us about that? Because I know there's some situations that happened recently and stuff like that within your community, and you've been trying to help out these kids and anything like anything you could speak on it?
Yeah, rest in peace, P Money.
Preston
Miller passed away 2 days ago, and I just rest in peace to the little brother. And I've been doing youth work and gang intervention. I had a job for the YMCA called Alive and Free program, and where they practiced the National Gang Intervention Model, and it was a model that was created by a guy in Riverside, California, somewhere else. And Seattle practices that model exclusively in a multi-jurisdictional way, where everywhere else in the United States they use it. They only practice it in one jurisdiction. So shout out to Seattle being the innovator and the progressive city that it is. And that I was able to work with young men and women that are in the life, that are parts of power groups, and trying to teach them there's a better way,
And I commend you for that, because there's not that many people out there, and that kids need guidance, out there. If you're willing to put the effort to guide a kid in the positive way, then I salute you, because there's not many people out there that even tries to change one life. And if you could change one life, you're doing your job on earth.
Hey, I appreciate that big time. I really do, because it never feels like we're doing much. I don't know that it is, but I got to shout out Million May from Seattle, Washington, who has completely changed his life around, and he lives today for his young son, and he's trying to leave that power group away. So go Million May.
Shout out to him too.
And also B.L. Sawedge, young Micronesian young brother who listened to it, and he's doing the community work right now. So shout out to BL Sawedge, man. Keep doing your thing, boy. I'm proud of you, and much love and respect. And Million, keep doing what you're doing, despite the tragedies that have been falling in your life, man. Stay with it.
You know, and I know, like, sitting here with you, I can't complete your whole life story, you know, to the full extent of what I wanted to. But I wanted to make sure we covered your accomplishments, achievements, your things you've been through in life and stuff like that. But is there a message that you can leave behind for anybody that's strung on heroin, doing meth, doing blues, or anything that's positive that could give them some hope?
And so this is like the struggle that the message I try to give to my own children, and is that, man, to believe in yourself and want more for yourself, because nobody can want for you, you know, and that there's something better out there. And if you have want for yourself, there's people that love you and will support you if you let it be known. So believe in yourself and just what you want. Let us know so that we can get behind that and support it, and that you don't have to hide behind that struggle, because I know it's real, and I know that that drugs have a powerful hold on people, but they don't have to keep that hold forever. So I just say to you, have wanting for yourself. You know, want something more, and you'll achieve it.
Great. Those are great words of wisdom. Is there anything else I left out that you want to add on to this?
And so, like I said,
shouts out to anybody that you want to say hi to.
Man, I want to shout out to Brandon Wall.
Shouts out, Brandon.
My day one motherfucker. That's him. You know, day one.
He needs to get on this podcast and get the interview. Brandon, I'm waiting.
You know, Mealia Johansson, and you know, man, the homie Wicked, man.
Shouts out to Wicked, of course.
You know, to and Hush and the Hang family. You know,
the Hang family,
who put me on the immigration track and stuff. We all did the C-Rack, you know, ride together, man.
Yes,
we
sir.
came into this work together. San Diego Life, hey girl, you know, shouts out. And Old Boy Kong, man, where would I be without shouting out Old Boy Kong?
Yeah,
man?
yeah, that's right.
You know,
yeah. Old Boy, always. Old Boy
he's
Kong.
in it, and so like for show entertainment, you know, it's a lifestyle, not just a, you know. Check him out on his channel. But I can't say this strong enough, man. Shout out to Tira, others in this channel for hearing it. If you got anything from my story, I don't want to glorify any of the missteps that I've made and things that I've been through, other than that, you know, we're strong people, and you got to give Tira, others the props for bringing these messages and stories out to the public. And
Thank you. I appreciate it, OG.
yeah, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Greatly
It's
appreciate
these little things like this that's going to change the world, man, and you believe in it. And so there's a saying we also say, man, people don't change, they heal. And so all of us and every one of us that I know, one thing we have in common is that trauma that we've suffered at younger ages. And so, like I said, they don't change, we heal. And yeah.
OG, Andy, FLACO, it is an honor to have you on the show. Thank you for making your way from Seattle to come on the show. I greatly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. You're now tuned into episode 2 of the Others Podcast. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you. All right.